The image of a Hollywood star is often tied to extravagance, multi-million-dollar mansions, car collections, and a lifestyle far beyond ordinary imagination. But no one embodied that madness more vividly than Nicolas Cage. This is the man who once stepped onto the Oscar stage with an awkward yet proud smile. An actor hailed as a chameleon going from a despairing alcoholic in Leaving Las Vegas to a raging warrior in Face Off. A star who could earn tens of millions of dollars in a single year and burn through it in the blink of an eye. Tabloids once raved that Cage owned more than 15 mansions across the United States, 2 castles in Europe, a private island in the Bahamas, fleets of vintage cars, exotic pets, and even a dinosaur skull worth nearly $300,000. Then those same papers announced Nicolas Cage owed tens of millions in taxes and had to liquidate everything down to the very stones of his castles. From a box office king, he became a punchline, forced into a string of B-movies to pay off his debts. The question that stunned Hollywood: how does a legendary leading man, an Oscar-winning genius, slide so far that he ends up broke? But the truth behind Nicolas Cage's fall is far stranger than fiction. Nicolas Cage was not born into an ordinary family. He entered the world on the 7th of January, 1964, in Long Beach, California, as Nicholas Kim Coppola. His surname alone signaled a towering legacy. He is the nephew of famed director Francis Ford Coppola, the man behind The Godfather, Apocalypse Now, and one of Hollywood's great icons. Nicholas's father, August Coppola, was a literature professor. His mother, Joy Vogelsang, a dancer and choreographer. His childhood seemed destined for a dreamy, artistic atmosphere. In reality, it was more complicated and shadowed. His mother suffered from severe depression and was hospitalized frequently. The emotional instability at home left Nicholas with a deep unease and an early hunger to prove himself. He would later say that childhood wounds drove him to acting as an escape, a world where he could become anyone, free from the fragility inside his own home. In high school, film became an obsession. He haunted theaters, studying every frame and performance. This young Coppola didn't want to stand outside the screen. He wanted to step onto it and define the story. But the Coppola name was both gift and burden. Nicholas knew that if he entered Hollywood as Coppola, he would always be seen as Francis's nephew, an heir rather than an individual talent. So he made a choice. He became Nicolas Cage, inspired by Marvel's Luke Cage and avant-garde composer John Cage. It was a declaration he would break from the family shadow and carve out a path that was independent, edgy, and rebellious. In those early years, Cage chased difference. He studied acting and experimented wildly from stage work to tiny screen roles. Colleagues from that time said he never compromised. He would break any rule of performance to find the rawest emotion. Once, to play a character with a toothache, he actually had a tooth pulled simply to capture the pain on camera. That extremity made some call him crazy, but it also set him apart. To Nicholas, cinema wasn't entertainment. It was ritual, a battleground where he staked his entire soul. From an unsettled childhood to cutting off the Coppola shadow, Nicolas Cage wrote a fierce prologue to his career. From that foundation, he stepped into his first notable roles, beginning a decade-long dramatic ascent. In the early 1982nd, Hollywood saw a wave of young talent. In his 20s, Nicolas Cage pushed his way onto the screen. He took supporting parts from Fast Times at Ridgemont High, 1982, to Rumblefish, 1983, directed by his own uncle, Francis Ford Coppola. But rather than rely on his family's safety net, Cage chose the rougher road, roles that could define a distinctive style. His first lead arrived with Valley Girl, 1983, a teen romance warmly received by audiences. With a half-cocky, half-romantic grin, Cage made a singular impression, a guy both alluring and deeply unsettled. Critics noticed a strange blend, raw and heightened, as if he lived in his own cinematic universe. From there, Cage dove into range. In Raising Arizona, 1987, he played a lovable, bumbling criminal. In Moonstruck, 1987, which won Cher an Oscar, he was Ronnie Camilleri, a passionate, explosive baker, unforgettable on screen. His daring peaked in 1995 with Leaving Las Vegas. As an alcoholic determined to drink himself to death, Cage poured his whole being and private pain into the role. The film earned him the Academy Award for Best Actor, proof that the once eccentric kid had become a true artist. But he didn't stop at artistic tragedy. Right after the Oscar, he charged into big budget action. The Rock, 1996. Con Air, 1997. Face, Off, 1997. This was his golden era. Nicolas Cage became a top box office draw, making tens of millions per film. He was both Oscar laureate and action star, shoulder to shoulder with Bruce Willis and Tom Cruise. Off-screen, his life exploded like his roles. He bought mansions, supercars, and antiques. The press crowned him Hollywood's most charming madman. To fans, he was a man who lived to the hilt for art, for fame, and for wild, wasteful thrills. But in that bright light, shadows gathered. Sudden fame, too much money, and an extreme personality nudged Cage toward a life out of control. The spending sprees and erratic decisions would soon turn the spotlight into a pit of debt. As the 2000s began, the story shifted from rise to fame to fall from grace. In Hollywood, many stars spend lavishly. Nicolas Cage took that idea to unprecedented heights. At his peak, he earned over $40 million in 2009 alone, and upwards of $150 million across his career. But instead of investing or saving, he plunged into a spending frenzy the media called the craziest in Hollywood. The asset list was hard to believe. 15 properties across the US, including a $25 million home in Newport Beach and a Las Vegas estate, 2 European castles, one in Bavaria, one in England, a private island in the Bahamas billionaire-level toys. And it wasn't just real estate. Cage fixated on bizarre collectibles. He bought a Tarbosaurus dinosaur skull for $276,000 later, returning it after learning it had been smuggled from Mongolia. He kept an octopus, sharks, and cobras, believing such creatures could sharpen his craft. He spent millions on rare comics, including Action Comics #1, Superman's debut. To the press, Cage was both Oscar genius and eccentric big spender. Then the darkness knocked. In the early 2000s, the IRS found he owed tens of millions in unpaid taxes. His palatial properties became crushing liabilities. Assets turned into anchors. Lawsuits piled up from banks, the tax man, even his own financial advisors. At the worst point, Cage's debts topped $150 million, an astonishing figure that took him from multimillionaire to effectively broke. To repay, he began liquidating. Castles, mansions, island, supercars, one by one, they vanished. The curios, ancient Egyptian artifacts, the dinosaur skull went to auction. On screen, his career nosedived. He took any role, low budget, thin scripts, so long as it paid. From 2010 to 2015, he appeared in a flurry of critically panned films, mocked by audiences. From box office king, he became washed up and a running joke online. The media called him a symbol of Hollywood decay, once crowned on the Oscar stage, now lost in soulless projects. Behind the forced red carpet smiles stood a man grappling with monstrous debt and a shredded reputation. Hollywood, which once exalted Cage, turned its back. Many assumed Nicolas Cage would soon disappear from the spotlight for good. In 2009, major outlets reported it bluntly. Nicolas Cage was bankrupt. The public figure of debt over $150 million read like a sentence. For audiences, it was a shock. An Oscar winner, a man who had made tens of millions a year, reduced to selling even an English castle. The nadir was parting with the emblems of his wildness. Action Comics #1, bought for over $1 million, went on the block. Houses, the private island, even the exotic pets disappeared. The Tarbosaurus skull bragged about to the press returned to the Mongolian government. The more he sold, the more depleted he seemed. To keep cash flowing, he accepted a raft of films critics called cinematic disasters. From Bangkok Dangerous, 2008, to Left Behind, 2014, these titles tethered his name to ridicule. The crazy Nicolas Cage meme flooded the internet, turning him into a punchline rather than a serious actor. Yet even in this humiliation, one thing never vanished: the ferocious commitment Cage brought to every role. Cheap movie or not, he left it all on screen. Colleagues said that even on tiny sets, he would scream, writhe, and experiment to extremes as if shooting an Oscar masterpiece. For Cage, acting was never a joke, even when the whole world was laughing. His darkest moment came when career bottomed out, reputation collapsed, and wealth evaporated. The press wrote of him as a ghost of Hollywood, a failure beyond recovery. Fans, once adoring, now pitied him. But at that rock bottom, another door cracked open. While Hollywood shunned him, a new generation of filmmakers saw what others had forgotten, an actor willing to live and die for a part. From the ashes of collapse, Nicolas Cage was poised for an unlikely rebirth not in box office blockbusters, but in eccentric indie films where his madness became pure gold. It seemed Nicolas Cage would drown forever in debt and B-movie oblivion. Fate, however, opened a new chapter. Starting with Mandy, 2018, audiences realized that Crazy Nicolas was, in fact, independent cinema's secret weapon. Young directors, enamored of his extremity and refusal to compromise, gave him roles tailored to harness that energy. In 2021, Pig arrived apparently a small film, yet it stunned critics. As a reclusive chef searching for his stolen truffle pig, Cage delivered a performance so tender many called it the best of his career. Then, The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, 2022, with Cage playing himself turned him into a pop culture phenomenon, a living meme embraced by Gen Z. Today, Nicolas Cage is no longer the box office supernova with lavish castles. He is an emblem of excess and error, yes, but also of a stubborn resilience that refuses to vanish. He has proven that even after losing everything, a true actor can rise again from the ashes. Nicolas Cage's legacy is more than a filmography. It is a beautiful paradox, genius and madman, splendor and collapse, tragedy and rebirth all coexisting in a single human being.